thankful to be able to see your faces and at least your names on the screen. Angie, you're very gracious, but I really believe with all my heart that it's Stephen and Pastor Ray will resonate with this, that it's the history and background that we have that probably has a lot to do with the calling that God has laid upon our lives. And I'm very thankful that we can speak to people with our hearts as well as our heads. And that's certainly what I intend to do today. Mm-hmm. So I want to begin. I'm going to be sharing with you a new resource that we are already using and making available to you, along with the 10-session Quit Nicotine program. We now have a brand new 6-session Living Free, Finding Freedom from Habits That Hurt. But I want to begin by sharing with you. I resonate with you, Angie, when you say that we really have a need of a blended message ministry. Because we are not in need of more and more exciting and amazing factoids. The internet is burgeoning with factoids, but we have a message to bear in a certain way, not only from a Christian worldview, but from a biblical worldview that straightens out the horrible misconceptions about God that have driven so many into insanity, addictions. And we make decisions based on our worldview and what we know and our environment. And so what a joy and a privilege it is for us to engage in blended message ministry. And we're told that when we separate the two, the gospel from the health evangelism, that the worst evil comes into our churches. And I have seen it, I believe it. And so my happy place is working with evangelists and doing pre-meetings for evangelists, but our materials can be used in a lot of venues. But I want to share a really encouraging statement with you as we begin. It says, by sin, we have been severed from the life of God, and our souls are palsied. There are many who realize their helplessness and who long for that spiritual life, which can bring them into harmony with God. Let these desponding, struggling ones look up. Whatever may be the evil practice, the master passion, which through long indulgence binds both soul and body, Christ is able and longs to deliver. He will impart life to the soul that is dead in trespasses and sins. He will set free the captive that is held by weakness and misfortune and the chains of sin. So whether by choice, chance, or circumstance, as we like to say, you are made to make it. And the roots of addiction are indeed deep and tangled. And what begins as a curiosity or a crutch soon becomes a conditioned response, then a compulsion, then a heavy chain around the neck. And many of us know exactly what that feels like. Addictions are strong, but the weapons to overcome them are stronger. So let's take a look at what I decided to do. I was so grateful and thrilled when Angie invited me to share a little bit of this with you. I'm going to share my screen, and the Living Free program is basically 6 scripted PowerPoints that are editable. They have session guides with them, interactive worksheets, a facilitator's guide, all kinds of things that are available to use with them. So what I decided to do is go ahead and squish the whole program so that we can just get a little taste of what those 6 sessions are. And we also have a 10-session Living Free Quit Nicotine program. They dovetail very nicely together. They're very interactive. They're a coaching style program, and they're easy to do. You can do them one-on-one. You can do them in a large venue, a church, or any other setting, a doctor's office, or wherever you please. They are a blending of mind, body, and spiritual truth. We do not back away from that from day one. And so I'm going to share my screen. Now, these are all resources that are available to you. Oh, and I also probably should tell you that that Hope TV is partnering with us. They have invited us to produce a 13-segment television series for Hope TV called Living Free. And so it's going to be a blending of the 6 sessions that I'm showing you today, plus some of the quit nicotine programs in a whole quarter's worth of program. It will basically be 30-minute segments, but the nice thing about this is that it's going to include 10 to 15 minutes of testimonies and interviews. And so that is going to really carry the strength of the program. And then smaller churches without people who would be afraid to do a PowerPoint, they can just show the program, which I think is a really nice option. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And I think it's this one. And so what we're going to do is a session overview, and I'm going to really try to pay close attention to the time, but I usually don't, so I'm depending on my friends to keep me on track, because we do want to have time for questions and answers. So Angie, I'm just, boldly asking you to help me to pay attention. Just to give you a little background about myself before we begin, why on earth this topic? Why are we so interested in brain-body health? Why do we talk about these multiple systems? Well, I came from a very violent home. I started running away from home when I was 5. By the time I was 11, I was deep into drugs, smoking, and running away from home. I developed bulimia for 20 years. And I ran away for good when I was just 17 years old. My grades stayed high because I would hide in libraries from the violence. So the worldview that I was raised in was not of our faith. I was raised in the wine business, a very interesting experience. But I was raised in a worldview that teaches eternal conscious torment of a departed soul. And so as a result of this, I became a hardened atheist quite young. And so in my soul of souls, I really believe that one of the reasons that the mind-body connection, the brain-gut connection, the beautiful trifecta of crosstalk that goes on between the brain, hormonal, and neural systems is a platform for us to teach the truth. That you don't have a soul, you are a soul. And if we don't make some of these testing truths our aim and our goal in the presentations that we share, then the Baptist, the Hindu, the Muslim, they go away thinking, well, yeah, well, if I depart early, my soul will go to a better place, or I'll be recycled on this earth. And so it is just of tantamount importance that we understand the incredible platform that we have been given, not just to teach the gospel, but to teach the truth. The truth is Jesus, and I don't separate those truths from the gospel, because when I heard that people don't burn forever, I just instantly said, well, I could worship a God like that. So to me, it's not all about broccoli, and it's not all about just getting fit and being able to fit in spandex. It's really about the worldview that God has given us as a platform. And all of our programs are designed to edge in that direction. And we actually build direct appeals to the heart into our presentations. So we're going to go through a smattering, just a very brief of each session. So this is a program overview. And I don't know where to click to make this happen. I've done enough Zoom meetings, it should work. There. All right, so as we look at the sessions, session number 1, when people come to the program, and by the way, regarding the wonderful regeneration or journey materials, this session, these living free sessions, finding freedom from habits that hurt, they can be used as a pre-session, a post-session. They can be used as a, get your act together series of meetings. My life is falling apart. When we do handbills and have the community come, it doesn't matter what the topic is, whether it's diabetes, metabolic syndrome, depression, building better habits, mindset matters. We have 26 different topics at Lifestyle Matters that are free to you, free scripted PowerPoints in English and Spanish. But it's all basically, the way we word them is, my life is falling apart. And people come because that's what's happening right now. And we know this. So we have an amazing opportunity. So session number 1 is about the addictive and learning brain. Session 2, we're going to take a look at those freedom keys. The addicted brain is fighting hard, but we need to learn how to fight smart. And we're in a battleground, not a playground. And we have to fight smart in 5 different areas. Your environment is what surrounds you, and your internal environment of how you think. There's your culture. That's what pressures you. There's your biology. That's what changes you. What begins as a curiosity soon becomes a condition. There's your brain. That's what drives you. And then there's the spirit, and that's who leads you. We're right up front about it. We want you to learn how to fight with every tool in the box. Your external environment is what surrounds you, your lifestyle, your internal environment of attitude, corrections or connections, and situational awareness. And situational awareness is a very fun way of talking about relapse. And we use the Granite Mountain Hotshots as the example in that. And then we have a bonus session, number 6, habits that last. How to form identity-based changed habits rather than outcome-based change, so that you can actually have some joy on the journey instead of misery. So each session comes with an interactive summary worksheet, which includes a summary of the PowerPoint presentation, plus coaching questions that you can use in a discussion format. Each program also has extra handouts. Each session has extra handouts and fun recipes that we want to make available to you. Also, the Balanced Living tracks, we have 26 of those, and we've apportioned them out as handouts, but they are also available in an e-tract form so that they can just be emailed if you're doing Zoom meetings. You don't have to, and we also give you the PDFs if you just want to print out PDFs and are not able to order them. So let's just briefly go through a few of these, because I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. I believe that the Lord has blessed us with very special licensing with these images. They can be translated. These programs can be translated into other languages. They're being translated into Chinese right now. And our materials are being used in, 155 cities in China that have been unentered, that have either 500,000 up to 8 million people. They're being used as an entering wedge. And they've been used in God pods into North Korea. And we just sent 50,000 tracts in Arabic to Dearborn, Michigan for the Arabic community. So one of the unique things about our licensing agreement is that we don't have to pay an extra $20,000 or $30,000 every time we change the words on a slide. And that's a remarkable thing. So for the addicted and learning brain, I'm just going to go through some of the fun things that we share in these. Addictions are like a deadly virus. Well, guess where we got that idea? We're in a pandemic. They're like a deadly virus that take over your life. They take you where you don't want to go. They keep you there longer than you want to stay. And they cost you more than you want to pay. I guess Paul summed it up when he said, those things that I want to do, I don't do. Those things that I don't want to do, I do. Well, that's where we all are, and we want to be able to move forward from that horrible place. And what we tell people is that, change is painful. It's uncomfortable. It's disturbing. It's a little frightening. But staying stuck is painful, disturbing, and frightening also. In either case, there's light at the end of the tunnel. In one case, it's a train and it's going to run over you. In the other case, it's Christ, it's light, it's truth, and it's freedom. But either way, there's discomfort involved. Choose your train track. So this is from Nora Volkow. You're very familiar with her. Once a person has experienced addiction, changes have taken place in the brain that involve multiple brain circuits. And we have so much fun getting into the brain-gut connection and how low-grade inflammation is involved, not only in metabolic disease, but also in addictions and depression. And that not only is there a brain-gut connection, but there's also something called a gut-brain. It's a thing, as they say in the present vernacular. And in fact, the brain has its own immune system. And we talk about that and how low-grade inflammation actually can create a lot of the symptomology that you see in addictions. And we get into behavioral nutrition and how nutrition can make a pretty serious inroad into some of the symptoms that we experience, the mental health symptoms that would normally put you on a psychiatrist's couch, and that's fine. We're not against that. But there are actually behavioral or lifestyle practices that can actually create those symptoms without having a mental condition attached. In other words, it can create the condition based on the diet and lifestyle. And you folks know and understand that, but we explore it. And one of the things that's really exciting about exploring these topics is that you can just see people getting more courage. Oh, I have some tools. Oh, there's something I can do. Oh, you mean if I make these choices, it's going to lower irritability. It can help me to actually be calmer, have better impulse control from the gut speaking to my brain. Yes, because even the cheapest computers have backup systems. And God has engineered you and I for renewal, recovery, and restoration. If that wasn't the case, I'd say let's just give it up and go to Chuck E. Cheese Pizza. However, they are going bankrupt. So how important it is that we understand how to encourage people in their journey and give them tools and hope and confidence. And really, so often we're focused as health practitioners on outcomes, but the heart of health is hope. Hope in our hindrances, hope in our habits, hope in our heartaches, and hope for heaven. Because without hope, who cares? There's no reason, there's no motivation. And so even in suffering, when there is meaning and purpose, people are less likely to delve into addictive behavior. So it's very, worldview cannot be separated from healthy habits. Worldview gives us a reason to understand this perplexing and painful world that we live in. So if you think you have an addiction, it's important to work closely with your healthcare provider. And especially with addictions and depressions, in 75 to 80% of the cases, there's some kind of coexisting condition, and we want you to work with your healthcare team. We are a lifestyle program. We're not putting up a shingle as a counseling organization. We are not a clinical program. We're a lifestyle support program, and we don't use sweeping generalizations, oversimplifications. We understand that we're dealing with very complex problems and challenges here. In fact, we actually changed part of our Quit Nicotine program as a result of some seminars that I attended at Brighton Ascension Hospital Recovery Center for Addictions, because some of the side effects of withdrawal, even of just nicotine, people are taking so much more and they're on multiple drugs and they have so many more side effects, so much more that they're dealing with. We don't have quit day anymore. We have choose your quit day, because the side effects of withdrawal from some of these substances and even behavioral addictions is psychosis, suicide, and even death. So this isn't toying with something that is simple. And that's one reason why when we do trainings, we don't hand out certificates, because we don't want people to get the idea that they can hang up a shingle and start practicing. But God, the good news is that as we humbly profess what we do know and the relationships that we do understand, people have an opportunity to make a choice in a supportive environment. God has designed the human brain, even in adulthood, isn't that good news? With a powerful capacity to reshape itself, learn, and grow new connections. The promise is, I have seen his ways, I will heal him, I will lead him, and I will restore comforts. I don't know where I put my water. I guess I left it in the kitchen. Well, the maid isn't here today, so I'll just do without. Then after the PowerPoint, this is the kind of neat thing that we wove into this. That's a very short version of session 1. The slide programs are beautifully scripted, and they're between 40 and 50 slides, thereabouts, for each session. But what we've done is we've created a division. So if you just want to do a presentation, there it is. If you want to do the discussion segment, which is part of those worksheets, we have that built into the PowerPoint as well. So we have the closing slide, the Alamy licensing slide, but then we have this discussion time, grace, growth, and change. This is time for, if you want to have a guest come in and give a brief testimony. Then we have a coaching style interactive for every single session. What are your thoughts? And so in this session, how is an addiction like a bad virus? And they get to talk about that. What is the great capacity of the human brain? And with positive change, the joy is in the journey. And you didn't see that part in the program, but basically in a journey, it's who you become as you change, not just the ultimate end, that brings the real joy. So that's the thrust of some of the information in the first program. What are you learning? What did you hear that deeply moved you? What did you learn that makes you stronger in your resolve? What will you do? Which of the keys to living free are you ready to implement, and what is your action step? Then we have a group pray and say. And we quote Philippians 4:13, and then we all say together, I love living free. Session 2, we just give an overall description and just a bit of teasers on the freedom keys that our addiction team has put together. So the freedom keys are surrender, creation living, situational awareness. It's like one alcoholic that I worked with. He's heavy into AA, and it's helped him a lot. He said, knowledge is half the battle, but it's only half. That's a good saying that gets sent around a lot. And this is understood and known in every culture. Knowledge imparts information, but what? Not the power to execute. And I've learned over the years doing lifestyle meetings that 80% of what I say, people already know. But how do we make it operational in the life? So we're focusing a lot more on coaching style change rather than just downloading information into people's heads. Learning how to establish infrastructure and connections. One of my degrees is in public administration. I have a master's degree in public administration, and that's really the direction that I was planning on going with my life and law. And I used to love to work on city revitalization plans. And what I know about city revitalization is that one of the first things that needs to be repaired if you're going to revitalize an area is that you have to repair the infrastructure, because the infrastructure is what connects the city's resources. It's what gives the city its economy, its synchrony, and its ability to thrive, learn, and prosper. And without a repaired infrastructure, then that city becomes vulnerable to vandalism, violence, and vagrancy. And it's really interesting how the Bible uses the things that we can see in order to help us to clearly understand the things that we cannot see. That's Romans chapter 1, verse 20. And in Proverbs, it says that a man that has no self-control is just like that city with those two problems. It is broken down and without walls. So the infrastructure is broken down and it is now vulnerable. It's vulnerable to addictions, anxiety, depressive disorders, and all of the vicissitudes of the environment and the choices that we've made and the terrible things that just happen in this life. So our goal is to help people to connect and to create an infrastructure of strength so that they really can have a headspace where they can learn. So creation living, I've already told you this briefly from the first session, but we're going to delve into in these sessions, creating an environment, internal, which is your outlook, and external, your surroundings. And we have one whole evening just on your internal environment. Creating a lifestyle, creating connections with God and with others, and one whole evening on situational awareness and habit formation. So what is situational awareness? Situational awareness is learning how to fight smart in your environment, with your culture, your biology, your brain, and spiritual. We talked about those battleground basics that we need. And then in this session, we tell an inspiring story of Jerry Scheel, who to this day, he is still doing Lifestyle Matters training. As a matter of fact, he holds meetings throughout Calgary and various parts of Canada. He has gotten into so many non-Adventist churches with the Living Free program over the years. He showed up at an NAD training with a busload of Canadians and wanted to give his testimony. And I thought, who is this guy? I don't know anything about him. Well, he has an incredible story of being addicted to everything. And pastor gave him this box and said, if you do what's in this box, you'll be free. Well, that's not the way the program is designed to be used, but that's what he did, and he became free. He started working with Roger. This is Roger's apartment, And, you know, sometimes we just know too much. And if I had walked into an apartment like that and seen all those gin bottles, I don't know that I would have tried. I don't know that I would have had much to say. And I know you resonate with what I'm saying, because it just looks, how can this guy have a brain left? Jerry asked Roger, he was a retired Royal Air Force pilot who'd fallen into hard times. He had a heavy alcoholism problem, and Jerry met him, I can't remember where, but he asked him if he would like to be free. And Roger said yes. And Jerry said, well, I've got this box. And if we go through this box, you'll be free. Jerry hadn't been through a training. He never followed the directions, but he's working full time. And I've told Jerry many times, I think the Lord had us create the Living Free series just for you. He's kind of dyslexic. He doesn't read real well, although he's absolutely a brilliant human being. He's an architect and a carpenter. He developed software, but his reading skills, and he was nervous about PowerPoints. So he has the guests read them and they discuss them, and they don't want to leave his house. He has 30 people every month that come to his home for a Living Free program. This is Evelyn talking about dietary fiber, creating an environment. This is Roger. There's Roger, cleaned up. Look at his home now. It's a beautiful story. After a year of freedom, Roger said, you know, I want to get my job. I need a job. This is the taxi that he used to take to the liquor stores to get his gin. It was the same taxi that he got a job a year after sobriety, and he would take people to Bible studies. He is resting, waiting for Jesus to come, but for years, he had a couple of setbacks, but he died free. So I love this promise. He took me up out of a deep waste place, out of the soft and sticky earth. He put my feet on a rock and made my steps certain. That's session 2. I don't know if we have time to go to another one. Angie, we good so far? Okay, great. So then we get into your external environment. So you'll notice we're in the 3rd session. We do address making some very basic, simple inroads into just sort of feeling better, making some wise choices. These things are threaded through. It's not this topic, then this one, then this one, then this one. They're woven together, but each session has an emphasis. So make sure your surroundings are helping you and not hurting you. Remove triggers, replace with positives, and recapture purpose-filled living, that joy place, that creative place. And practice new behaviors. Practice not only makes permanent, practice also makes progress. And what I've learned in working with addictions over these years in my own life and in the lives of many others is that basically many people who suffer from addictions and depression and some of these types of severe challenges actually are very perfectionistic personalities, and often they just don't have a recipe for facing down problems, and they don't know how to go through. We hide, we try to divert our attention from whatever causes pain because we don't know how to deal with discomfort, pain, whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual pain. And so part of the healing process is realizing and learning that when we have these diversion behaviors, that it actually creates more anxiety, depression, and pain and disconnect. But when we actually learn how to tunnel through trouble, exchange that wishbone for backbone, and practice new attitudes and behaviors about problems, challenges, difficulties, obstacles, and pain, we actually gain strength. So we are teaching people not to be afraid of the pain. We don't welcome it, we don't love it, but we do have to learn how to deal with challenges and problems. And that's just not simple, and it's not easy. And the moment you give your heart to Christ doesn't mean you automatically know how to live or think or make right decisions. And so this is a great format for coming together, mentoring, teaching, learning, sharing stories, but this is guided learning. It's not the style of coaching where everything is neutral and everything's good and no, this is guided coaching where we're introducing truths and principles to grow in a direction. So there are enough real challenges in life without voluntarily exposing ourselves to media, and activities that are actually going to create depressive, morbid thinking and encourage worry, catastrophic thinking, immorality, and fear. So when it comes to health, energy, and mood, lifestyle really does make a difference. And these, again, are just snippets of these programs. But positive lifestyle choices are going to protect the brain and body. They communicate with your brain. These informational substances actually create molecules of well-being that improve mood, memory, learning, and behavior. We talk about obesogenic microbes and anxiogenic microbes that actually increase pain, anxiety, irritability, depression, and the kinds of strategies just in the produce department that can help to dial that down, improve mood, and even improve what we call self-control, but the literature calls self-restraint. So the types of choices that we make with diet are going to increase the production of GABA, dopamine, and serotonin in the gut and in the brain. I love this statement. We used to think you were born with all the nerve cells that you were ever going to have, and that all you could do over your lifetime was lose them. I mean, that's a recipe for drowning your sorrows, if ever there was one. But the truth is, we do make new nerve cells, and these new nerve cells are very excitable. They integrate into the neuronal neighborhoods. And I'm always looking for God when I'm reading about these things and studying about these things. And there's something really marvelous about this process, that these new nerve cells migrate to two special areas of the brain, in particular, the hippocampal area of the brain. And of course, they migrate to other areas as well. But these two areas are of special significance. They migrate to the hippocampal area of the brain, which has to do with memory and learning, and the amygdala, which has to do with emotional memory and fear. So what does this tell us about God? It tells us that you and I are engineered for increased learning and wisdom over time and healing from emotional trauma. And I'm so thankful for the scripture in Isaiah chapter 61, verse 7, that says, whatever shame you've experienced, what happened to you before you even had thought, when people had authority over you, when you were a baby, all of these traumas can happen, and they affect neuronal, hormonal, epigenetic changes. And so the good news is that he says in that verse, I will repay you double. I will give you workers' compensation, double for your trouble. And at this point, I tell people, I want for your greatest weakness to be weaponized for the kingdom of God. And I see it happen all the time, and I'm really grateful for that. And here's another interesting thing. There are different types of trauma. There's what is called type B trauma. That's what happens to people. It's those beatings. It's the assaults that have happened when you were a child. It's those things that are seared in your memory and cause pain as you think about them. But then there's type A trauma. Type A trauma is what should have happened that didn't. It's that baby left in the crib at the orphanage that never gets held, never gets cuddled. And again, I took this to God and I said, okay, Lord, from a Christian worldview, some of these traumas happen before even memory occurs, and yet it has a shaping effect on this child. It affects hypervigilance, nervous system development, immune function, risk for addictions, and autoimmune disorders. And so what do you do about this? How do I think about this as a Christian? Well, the scriptures that came to my mind, first of all, that Jesus came to heal the brokenhearted and to set the captives free, set at liberty them that are bruised. And so there's a healing that is available. But he also says, I will supply all of your needs. So type B trauma, type A trauma. Well, how does he do this? He does it through you and me. I talked about this last night with the public. And I talked about these traumas. And I said, God wants to use you. The Bible says he puts families, he makes himself families like a flock. He sets the solitary in families, and he wants to use you as his hands to heal that which was broken and to supply that which was not given, which should have been received. So if you were deprived of your childhood, if you were robbed of your integrity, your virtue, whatever it was, or whatever you did where you just sold it for a mess of pottage, when God grafts you into his family, then you begin the process of receiving what you did not get or what you threw away, and healing of what was broken. And we get to be participants in that process. I had people raise their hand. They raised their hand. They want to be part of that. And that's a great thing. So physical and mental exercise, proper nutrition, and adequate sleep will help anyone gain cognitive clarity and emotional stability. I just love this. Cognitive clarity. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want emotional stability? But as we can see by looking at this statement by Dr. John Rady, psychiatrist from Harvard University, it's a multi-factored package. And here again is our opportunity to help people to understand that the brain is the hardware of the soul, that you cannot prosper one area and to the neglect of the rest. They all work together. And if you could go to the grocery store and buy a miracle in a can, would you do it? Well, of course you would. So I tell them there are two types. First of all, there's the I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But the other can is beans. And that's a part of the process. So we talk a lot about the Department of Defense, the produce department. Watch for triggers, morning, noon, and night. We have accountability friends. We have people that connect with each person. So as you choose a better way, your new choices are going to become threatening at times. They may be overthrown at times, but successful people are not mistake-free. They just refuse to give up. They learn how to get up instead of give up. And this is very important to me as a former runaway. I had no way to solve any problem except to either escape into whatever the addiction was at the time or just flee. So how great it is that God can teach us. Some people are born with some of these skills, but I'm so thankful that we all can learn them. So we talk about rerouting those urges when they come, and we try to make it as simple. We create lists. So in the same way that a small shift in your driving course is going to change your destination, modest shifts toward healthier choices are going to make a big difference. So we really focus on those micro changes and how when you make a small choice today, there's a gift waiting for you tomorrow. So every time you choose to bypass an impulse, you're strengthening your resolve in other areas. So number 4 is the internal environment. This is where we really go deep with people. And, you know, lifestyle is kind of fun and easy to talk about, but now we're getting into the core of what drives addictive behavior. This is the real core, because I know that there are attitudes that we carry of self-pity, bitterness, unforgiveness, anger, fear, lostness. We understand very clearly as Christians that the seed of the Spirit, the Galatians 5:22, the fruit of the Spirit, does not grow in the natural heart. Our hearts are hard. They're like granite. And here's the trick for people that have addictions. This is something that God spoke to my heart about, because people that have addictions, serious depression, can be very hypersensitive people, very easily offended. And we categorize ourselves as very sensitive people. One day the Lord spoke to me and said, Vicki, you're touchy. You have a hard heart and you're touchy. So the process of really growing into strong Christianity is reversing that, where you have a very sensitive heart, but very tough skin. That gives you the ability to develop the mental mettle to tunnel through trouble. It's an enormous shift. It's an incredible shift. It doesn't grow, the gifts are given, but seed is grown. And the fruit of the Spirit is, we are given it to us in its fullness, John 1:16, but it's in the form of seed. And we have to fight to get it to grow. And so temperance is not a list. It's a character trait of God implanted in the new heart. We teach these principles throughout the program. Am I doing all right on time there? 2 minutes?
A couple more minutes, yes.
Okay, well, we'll just zip on through all these terrible attitudes and end right there on a nice sour, no, we won't. So your internal environment is, it's about overcoming chronic negativity. We have habits of thinking that drive everything that we do. And that's the beautiful thing about being in the Word of God, is that it reshapes our thinking about ourselves, about our others, about our history, what's happened to us, what it means. It's a marvelous remodeling process that builds strength into the weakest human being. So it's overcoming chronic negativity. And there's a saying that as the man thinks, the mouth speaks, and the man moves. So we really do have nuclear power under our nose. We are going to prophesy to ourselves what we're going to do. So this session here is really key, and it brings the people so close to one another and to God, realizing the internal traits that drive so much that might have nothing to do with circumstances at all. So we teach people how to practice that new mindset, refuse self-pity, focus on solutions, and always holding up the beautiful truth that your brain is constantly reshaping itself according to what it learns, thinks, feels, and expects. So, we all need to apply this every single day in our lives. Dr. John Rady says this: experiences, thoughts, actions, and emotions actually change the structure of our brain. So attitude is that little thing, but it really makes a big, big difference. So we teach people, recognize unproductive negative attitudes, thoughts, and feelings, replace with positive promises, and refuse to dwell on past mistakes or future fear. We'll close with this: no life is free from challenges, mistakes, and obstacles. Successful people are not mistake-free. They just refuse to give up. Jesus asks us to just continue to say yes to him. You were no surprise to him when he got involved with your life, and we can safely trust his school. Thank you.